Welcome to the Have More Fun podcast. In this episode, I talk with Rachel Hollis about her tips for having great sex, why we need to stop breaking promises to ourselves, and how to live a life we actually enjoy.
And I would have given up because all of those things took a really long time to get. Meanwhile, I was totally shaving my toes. Like the whole time I'm making fun of this girl, I was totally doing it. He would start kissing my neck or something, and I would be like, oh, I'm tired. You know how it is. Like you put the kids to bed, you worked all day, you did what, you're like, this is the last thing I want to do.
One thing I get asked about a lot is my work. As a CEO of MOPS International, an organization that has huge influence around the world, I have opportunities to travel, meet cool people, write books, and do awesome stuff. It also means that I regularly have people ask how I landed said job or how they can have my job when I leave, which is totally understandable because it's a freaking awesome gig. But one thing I rarely talk about are the years and years of writing things no one read, taking jobs that were far from what I actually wanted to be doing, and getting up to work at 4 a.m. so I could get stuff done before my kids woke up. It has been a long journey to get here. And what I've learned over the years about work and pursuing passions and chasing success is that life is about the long game. So often we want immediate gratification for the hard work we're putting in. But what I'm realizing is that getting there, whatever there is for each of us, usually means doing the next small thing with excellence, not thinking anything is beneath us, and doing our work with heart and passion, even if we feel like no one is paying attention. That is why I love Rachel Hollis. Rachel is a mom to 4 kids, wife to her husband Dave, and founder of the Hollis Company. She's one of my favorite people to follow on Instagram, so go there right now because you don't want to miss even one of her posts. And not long ago, Rachel posted this caption about work and playing the long game in one of her Instagram posts. Here's what she said. Someone asked me on a podcast recently how it felt to be an overnight success. I had to stop myself from giggling. I've been building this company and this platform for 14 years. I'm an overnight success after a decade and a half of working on it. Don't think that any of this came easy or quickly or without an incredible amount of hard work. You want big dreams? You're going to have to put in big hours. You want a life few people can claim? You're going to have to do the work that few people will. Have patience, learn from the journey, put your head down, and get back to work. Rachel knows about the long game, which is just one of the reasons I appreciate her so much. Not to mention that she is honest, brave, and one of the biggest champions you will ever meet for living bigger than you ever thought possible. She's also a huge champion for all of us who are hustling at 4 a.m., raising kids, and occasionally questioning if we can do it all. If you are ever in need of a pep talk that will remind you that you've got this, Rachel is your girl. So without further ado, here is my friend, Rachel Hollis. Okay, Rachel, I absolutely adore your new book, Girl, Wash Your Face, mostly because it is brave and honest. And one of the really powerful underlying messages is this idea that if we don't like our lives, we can change it.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever have a point in your life where you had to make a decision to change something that wasn't working for you?
Oh my gosh, so many times, over and over again. I think that's why I feel so passionately about this subject, is because I am a living, breathing example of someone who throughout the course of my life has come up against hard seasons or has found myself in situations that I didn't think I was living the best life I should be, and took change, took different roads, figured out, did the research, read the books, went to see a therapist, or did whatever I needed to do to get healthy and be a better version of myself. So when I tell women, no matter who you are, what your circumstances are, you can take a hold of your life, it's because I'm speaking from experience.
Why do you think we forget that? Like, why do we forget that we can change our lives if we don't like something that's going on?
I think because for most of us, especially mamas, we feel oftentimes like we're kind of caught up in the tide. It feels a bit like your life is living you instead of you living your life, because you're not just taking care of yourself, you're taking care of babies and a partner. You could be helping with parents, you might be working, you might be doing all of these things, all of these lists of things that need to be done, and you're just trying to keep your head above water. So the idea that you're going to practice self-care or be reflective or meditate or pray or kind of figure yourself out gets tossed by the wayside because you're just trying to survive.
Totally. And I really appreciate how in your book you are honest and like lay it all out. And you are really candid about the challenges of just one, being a mom, but also just the day-to-day aspects of living as a human being. And you really lay it all out, right? Like you share about your past, you talk about your marriage, your personal life, and you do it in order to dismantle the lies that so many of us are believing. And the lies that have been on repeat in our heads for so long that they start to feel like they're true. And so can we talk about just a couple of the lies that you address? The first one being, I should be farther along than I am. What is your best advice for anyone who has that lie on repeat in their head?
So many women, especially women who are achievers or sort of envisioned a certain future for themselves, have this idea that, you know, you're supposed to be married by 25 and have your first baby by 30 and make partner in the law firm, you know, a half decade after that, or whatever it was in your own mind. And the problem with putting time limits on our dreams or our hopes for ourselves is that when they don't come true, when they don't happen on your time frame, you start to think that there's something wrong with you. And the truth is that we're all doing fine. If you're listening to this right now, you are doing just fine. There's no expiration date on who you're supposed to be, as long as you're just taking steps every day to become a better version of yourself. You're getting there. I find this obsession with time so interesting. And there's I don't know if you follow Enneagram.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a 3. I'm an achiever. I like goals. I like lists. I like getting things done. And as I'm here working on the next book that follows this one, which is all about goal setting and that sort of life, I have been thinking a lot about this idea of when you're in business, you'll hear people say things like, a goal is a dream with a deadline. Or, whatever you set for yourself, it has to have a timeline or it's not going to happen. And I just patently don't believe that, because my life is not a reflection of that. If I had given up because my dreams didn't work out when I thought they would, I wouldn't have anything that I have. I wouldn't have the incredible marriage that I have. I wouldn't have the children I have. I wouldn't have the business I have or the books that I've written. I would have given up because all of those things took a really long time to get.
Girl, that is such a good truth that all of us need to hear. You tell a really funny story about high school and shaving your toes as an illustration to talk about another lie that we believe. And that lie is that I am better than you. Will you share that story?
Yeah, so I was, it's the only time in my memory that I can remember actively going out of my way to make fun of someone, I was not a perfect human, but I was the kid that got teased in school. So I never really teased others. But there was this one time I remember in high school, in English class, there was a popular girl who was talking about shaving her toes. And I thought that was so crazy. Like, who says that? I guess popular girls can just say whatever they want and get away with it. But I made so much fun of her to my friend behind her, just the two of us. Meanwhile, I was totally shaving my toes. Like, the whole time I'm making fun of this girl, I was totally doing it. And I think that here I am, 35 years old, and I can recognize that insecurity that made me make fun of someone else for the thing I was doing never goes away. Like, that's still what so much of our judgments are wrapped up in as women. this comes to fruition a lot as moms. Like if someone's parenting different than you are, then you are judging or talking, or sometimes you're saying it straight up to her face. Like, oh, I can't believe you're not breastfeeding. I can't believe you're not this. I can't. And I just want to like, sisters, we are all doing our best, and we need to stop. Like every time that you judge someone else, every time that you decide that you are better than them, every time you do that, it separates you from community. It separates you from having friendship. It separates you from finding commonality with someone. We're all going to do things differently. There's not one right way to be. And I think that when we embrace that is when we start to really find our tribe.
Another lie that you talk about in your book, and you are so honest about this, is the lie we tell ourselves is that I'm bad at sex. Mm-hmm. And so I have two questions for you about this. One, why don't women talk about this more? I feel like we talk about sex and kind of joke about it, but that underlying belief that we're bad at it, I don't know that we talk about that much. And then the second thing is, how did you personally change that narrative in your own life?
Well, I don't know what it's like for you, but I didn't grow up in a community where we discuss sex at all. Whatever I knew about sex, I heard from like, snippets of my aunt sitting around the table, maybe gossiping or something. We didn't talk about it. And I was a preacher's daughter. So I had especially, sort of twisted vision of what this was, which was you're supposed to be a good Christian girl. And that meant that you did not have sex and you didn't do anything sexual. And then you got married, and all of a sudden you're supposed to know what you're doing and feel comfortable with it and want to talk about it and, do all these things that it's hard to remove a lifetime of sort of believing that was bad. And now all of a sudden it's supposed to be this good thing. So when I got married, and I would talk about this with my girlfriends later, I realized I'm not the only one who carries the stigma of really having a hard time with feeling comfortable in my sex life. So I think the reason we don't talk about it is you either kind of grew up discussing it or you didn't. And if you didn't, then to raise your hand and be the first person that says like, oh, this is hard. I don't know what I'm doing. I feel really uncomfortable. In my own marriage, it got to a place, we had 2 little kids. I felt super uncomfortable. We were barely having sex, where I had to take a really good hard look at what was going on and what was causing the problem, which was me. And now I am not I'm the most feminist you ever met. So this is not me going like, oh, the woman's wrong. But I was so uncomfortable. And I don't know if this will resonate with you, but I was so uncomfortable. I made it uncomfortable for both of us.
Totally. Yeah.
So the way through that was like admitting, hey, this is not what I want. When I imagined a healthy, thriving marriage, it wasn't this. And also recognizing, this sounds so dumb, but I'll just be totally honest with you. I was like, I think that this is, for some people, this is fun and good and exciting, and it's not for me. Mm-hmm. So what can I do to get to that place? And that takes like a ton of vulnerability, a ton of communication of like, oh, I'm going to have to talk about what makes me uncomfortable. I'm going to have to tell you what I like. I'm going to have to do all of this stuff that like I'm putting myself so far outside my comfort zone. But what happened because of that is we got this we have this amazing intimacy and this amazing relationship. Next week we'll be married 14 years. We've been together for 16. We have 4 kids, 2 full-time jobs, and we have sex more than any married couple you've ever met in your life. And it's because it's good. I mean, I hope that's not like so inappropriate to say.
No.
But we got to a place where I thought to myself, like, I should want to, like he would start kissing my neck or something. And I would be like, oh, I'm tired. Like, how it is. Like you put the kids to bed, you worked all day, you did what you're like, this is the last thing I want to do. And I remember thinking years ago, if this was really good, if our sex life was incredible, I would want it every time he does. So this is like a lot of information for Monday morning, but that's truthfully we really worked on it, and we were very intentional and committed to, we want to have an exceptional marriage, not just a good marriage, not even a great marriage. We want an exceptional marriage. And that means that every part of it needs to be something that we're intentional about. And we were intentional about our sex life, and the results have been incredible.
So if someone's listening right now and they're like, my sex life sucks right now, what would you tell them?
I mean, okay, this is so hard because I feel like if there's like a million things that go into it, but what feels good to you? What turns you on? What do you like? What you're going to have to be really honest with your partner about that. I do not know a single person on the planet that does not want to, unless they're just a super jerk, and that's a whole other conversation. But I don't know anybody who doesn't want to make their partner feel good. So if you can find the courage to just be like, just one thing, like, hey, one thing that they could do that would make you enjoy it more or allow you to enjoy it more, to have that honest conversation with them is life-changing. And just starting with one thing.
Did you just sit down and you're like, okay, I need to have an honest conversation?
Well, the best advice I would give here is do not have this conversation during sex, because you're already feeling really vulnerable. There's already a lot going on. And I think for a man, it can be very emasculating while you're in the middle of it to be giving direction. Some people might be into it, but just my experience was that, like, maybe we'd be on a date or something, and I wouldn't say, I would present the topic in a way that was a positive thing. So I wouldn't be like, I hate it when you this. I'd say, hey, the other day when you kissed my neck, I'm just like making something up for you. Yeah. I'm trying to keep this PG up in here. But I'm like, the other day when you kissed my neck, that was such a turn on to me. I love that so much. It made me feel so pretty. It made me feel sexy. Or like, remember when you sent me that text at work and told me my butt looked good in those jeans? Like that. For women, sex is mental. I don't know about you, but every girl I know, it is a mental thing. It starts, like I used to always tell Dave, like, sex starts, if you want to have sex with me at night, you got to start in the morning telling me I'm pretty and giving me a kiss and slapping my butt and sending me a text at work. Like, it's a mental game for me, so that by the time you roll over and like want to make out with me at 9:00 at night, I've already sort of been in that headspace with you all day. Because I think men tend to live a little bit more in that space. We're like over here trying to give our kids a bath and like get dinner on the table and, balance the checkbook and all this stuff. And you're like, oh wait, you want me to make out with you? No, I can't. My brain's not even there. So have those kind of conversations in a way that is like praising your partner instead of finding fault, and do it when you're not already in that space. And my experience is that then he would incorporate that thing that I talked about, and then I'd tell him another thing, and we just kept adding to the arsenal till we've gotten to a place now that we're so super comfortable to just say, like, here's what I'm in the mood for, and this all of a sudden went to like such an interesting place in our conversation. But that really is what we did, just one thing at a time. We also, it's in the book, and I've had so many readers incorporate this, and it sounds crazy, but as a way to kind of jumpstart our intimacy, we did something that we called Sexy September. We made it up. It just happened to be August at the time, so we were going into September, and we committed to having sex every single day for the month of September. This was a decade ago. And it was like, at first kind of terrible, because we're like, what in the world? Like by night 4, you're like, what? But because we had committed to it, it forced us to be really creative. It forced us to have fun. And the truth is, the more we were intimate with each other, the more we wanted to be. So, if you need something to kickstart your life, you might consider your own Sexy September.
Love it. You're revolutionizing women's sex lives.
Gosh, I hope so. I feel like if that's my legacy in the world, then we're doing good. I don't know how, like, are people listening to this with their toddlers, or is this like so, mostly women are gonna? Yeah. Okay, then I'm just gonna say, if you were having an orgasm every single time you had sex, you'd want to have sex every time. So I think a lot of times women, it's about the connection. So we'll have sex and it's like, it's about the connection and I love you and whatever. And it feels like maybe too much work or too much, all the things to get to a place where we have had an orgasm. But honestly, that was a big shift. I'm just giving you like super tactical advice right now. We made a commitment years ago that sex would always start with an orgasm for me. Wow, this is a lot of information. You can
No,
cut
it's
this
so
out if you
helpful
want.
though. I feel like
Okay.
you need to know this.
Yeah, it would always start with an orgasm for me. And then we'd, have fun together. And that way it was always fun for me. Rather than the flip, which was, back in the day where it was sometimes fun for me and always fun for him. So honestly too, if you're listening to this right now, I promise that nothing would make your husband happier in the entire world than you coming home and being like, hey, you want to try sex every day for a month? Or you want to try that you're going to give me an orgasm are you kidding? That is their dream. You just have to find the courage to own
Totally. Oh, so good. Okay. You talk about something that really, really inspired me. And you shared how one night you went out with some girlfriends and it turned into an impromptu dinner that went later than you had anticipated. And so when you got home, you chatted with your husband for a little bit, but then you headed downstairs to get some time on the treadmill because you had committed to yourself that you were going to do that day. And you documented it on Instagram. I hope I'm getting the story right.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And
totally
then
are.
a friend who was with you saw it and commented about how committed you were. And then you replied that you had committed to yourself earlier in the day and that you never break a promise to yourself. And then your friend said that she is usually the first person she breaks a promise to. And it was like so revolutionary to me. So would you talk about this idea of how we are often the first person we break promises to, and then how you have flipped that script?
Yeah, I don't even know that I was, when I first started out on this journey, that was my intention. It was just something I realized over time of sort of stopping and starting kind of anything in life, a diet or an exercise plan or, learning a new language or whatever it was, that I would set goals for myself and then life would get in the way. And then, dropping the kids off at school or just all these things would pop up in my schedule that made it impossible, and I'm using air quotes, impossible for me to keep the commitments I set for myself. Meanwhile, I don't break promises to anybody else. So if I tell you I'm going to be there, if I tell you I'm going to volunteer, if I tell you that we're going to have lunch, I will be there 5 minutes early with bells on. So why is it that I can keep all the commitments to other people and not the ones that I make to myself? And I think it's because, number one, we're not treating ourselves with as much respect as we treat other people. And number two, you are not taking your promises to yourself seriously. So if you have said 100 times that you're going to work out, that you're going to eat better, that you're going to fill in the blank, and 99 times you've given up on that, well, you're self-conscious when you say again, oh, I'm going to start that diet on Monday. You're self-conscious like, no, you're not. It doesn't take it seriously because you haven't taken yourself seriously. So why should you rise up? Why should I was going to say your spirit, but like, why should your subconscious like rise up to help you meet those goals when you've never done it before? So I just made a commitment to myself several years ago that I wouldn't keep breaking promises. And that means that I have to be very careful about what I commit to do. Because it's like this morning is a great example. I told myself yesterday I was going to go run. I run here in LA. I run around the Rose Bowl. It's about 3 miles and it's a gorgeous run in the mountains and it just like makes my spirit feel so good. And I didn't get to run this weekend because I was sick. And so I was like, I'm going to go run today. Well, I just, put my clothes on, go get in the car, and it's raining. And I honestly didn't think of it until I walked out of the house and it's raining. And I'm like, well, I guess we're going to run in the rain. Because I said that I would run and I'm doing it. So you have to be very careful about what you commit to, which means that you're going to commit to less things and you're going to only commit to stuff that you're going to be very intentional about. But we have to treat ourselves with at least as much respect as we do our coworkers or random strangers in our lives that we show up for, but we break the promises to ourselves in order to keep that.
So revolutionary. Do you feel like you say yes less to outside people when you've made commitments to yourself? Like you're better at managing all of your relationships? Or can you do just as much and still keep the commitments to yourself?
Oh, I think that you have to be very, very careful with your yeses. I think you need to have really strong clarity about what deserves a yes from you. My friend Jen Hatmaker says in her book, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
Mm-hmm.
If someone asks you to do something and your gut response isn't hell yes, you shouldn't do it. Because there's just not enough time. There's not enough hours. There's not enough resources for you to be committing to everybody. Like every single yes to someone else is a no to my children, is a no to time with my husband, is a no to self-care for me. Every single time I say yes to someone else, it's taking away a yes for someone that I love and care about. So I think you have to be really clear about what matters to you, what your priorities are. And if it doesn't fall into that, you got to let it go. Like for instance, I was just writing about this in the next book, and I'm sure I'll be, burned alive for it. But I do not, oh my gosh, I'm talking to a MOPS thing right now, and I'm going to say this. Oh,
no,
please don't hate me. It's so true. I don't volunteer at my kids' school. I don't. I absolutely do not.
I don't.
I know I'm okay. Good. Good.
I'm with you.
It is not, I did it when they were younger and I absolutely hated it. And I did it because I felt like I needed to, because that's what the other moms did. Meanwhile, there are moms there who freaking love it. Like they're so happy to be volunteers in the classroom, and I bow down to them and I'm so grateful for them. That is not my thing. And I know what matters to my kids individually. They each have things in their life that if I miss those things, they would be devastated. But volunteering in their classroom is not one of them. So I, 5 years ago, just decided I'm going to stop beating myself up to try and be like the other moms. I just need to be the best mom I can be for my babies and my family. And that means I'm going to say no every single time someone asks parents to come and volunteer in class. But when Jackson's in a school performance, I'm in the front row. And when, tonight it's raining and I'm going to go sit in the rain and watch Sawyer in a playoff game for baseball, which I do not love, but girl, I'm going to pretend that I've never loved slow pitch, kid pitch baseball more in my whole life, because that's his thing. So you've got to be clear on what your intentions are and what matter to you and your family, and let the rest of it go.
So freeing. Thank you for saying that.
Oh my gosh, of course.
Okay. You wrote a really powerful blog post talking about how we can have a dream and also be a parent. And I find that so many women are feeling so much tension related to both of those topics, right? They feel like when they're raising kids, they can't do that simultaneously while pursuing that passion that's like stirring in their gut. Mm-hmm. So can you give us some of your tips for how you do it?
Well, I think, gosh, it's such a big topic. It's literally the topic of the next book, because so many women, mamas especially, have a hope or a dream or a side hustle or a thing that they want to do, and they feel massively guilty about it. Mm-hmm. And it's like, they're like, but I would have to get a sitter, and it would mean that I would be away from them for, a few hours every week. And it's like, but sister, does it feed your soul? Does it make you happy? Does it make you feel like the version of you that you want to be? Then you need to do that thing. I like to remind women, you were a woman before you became their mom. You were a woman before you became their mom. You had hopes and dreams and hobbies and things that you love to do, and those didn't go away because you became their mom. Things morphed and changed, and having these babies is such a gift, but you're allowed to still have a desire in your heart that is not fully wrapped around them. For some women, staying at home is their ultimate it's their greatest dream achieved. Like my sister-in-law, Kirsten, is always who I think of. She is such a proud, happy mom. She is the mom that's volunteering in class and loves it. This is what she was made to do. But if you are someone who has a hope in your heart for something for yourself, you've got to chase that for yourself, just so that you can have that little thing in your heart that's just for you. So I think the first step is letting go of that guilt, because it is not serving you and is not serving your babies. You are going to be a better mom if you are a better woman. If you're more fulfilled on your own, you're going to be able to better show up for them.
I also love when our kids get to see us pursuing our thing, right? It's like,
yes,
in a way, we teach them how to do it for themselves. And I think,
of course,
frequently we forget that because we're so concerned about caring for their more immediate needs. But I love how you say when we are alive, in a sense, and flourishing, it helps our kids to be so as well. So good. Okay. You say something that I think is really powerful that all women need to hear, and that is to figure out what makes you happy and then do those things. How has that changed your life? And why is it so hard for women to make that a priority?
Well, I think it's that guilt again, right? Mm-hmm. So the idea that you're going to take time away from your children or your partner to go and have time for yourself and do something that often seems very frivolous, like getting your nails done or getting a massage or having dinner with friends, can feel not as important as, bath time and bedtime and getting dinner on the table and taking care of them. But the truth is, I would argue it's just as important, because that is how you get your cup filled back up. That is how you have the energy and the joy and the excitement to bring to the times where your toddler is throwing a tantrum in the middle of Target and you're ready to just leave her there. That is how, when you're having a really hard day, you don't get burned all the way to the bottom of your barrel. You would be shocked at how many direct messages and emails I receive from women all over the world who just say, I have nothing left. I'm exhausted. I'm depleted. I have nothing left to give. And I'm thinking, how did you let it get to this place? Because you have given and not taken anything for yourself. And the truth is, self-care is what you yourself believe to be of value. So if you need to go sit at a Starbucks and scroll through Instagram, if that's self-care for you, then you should do it. And if getting your nails done is your self-care, or taking a nap, or going on a run, or whatever it is, fight passionately for that in your schedule every single week. Because there's nothing in your calendar right now, there's nothing in your life right now that you didn't put there or you don't allow to be there. So if you can schedule the baseball games and the soccer games and volunteering in class and showing up and teaching Sunday school this weekend, you can certainly find an hour for yourself to go feel good again.
Love that. I love making that a priority. Okay. My favorite question to ask all my friends: what is the best advice you never got?
Oh, goodness. You said this earlier and I was like, what awesome thing could I say? What is the best advice I never got? Oh, I wish 20 years ago someone had drilled into my head that it does not matter what other people think of you. I think so much of my life would have been freer and kinder if I wasn't drowning in other people's expectations. I will give it, I'm trying to give it to my boys. I will absolutely give it to my daughter, but just that you need to feel good about yourself in your heart, that you need to feel good about yourself with your faith and your relationship with your partner. All of those things matter, but ultimately you should never be judging your worth through the lens of someone else's vision, because you will always fall short, because you can't control that. So I wish I had understood that someone else's opinion was none of my business.
So true. Do you have any thoughts about how to help our kids like own that. Because I have a teenager, he's 16, and I'm like, oh, that's like my biggest wish for you. And also for my two girls, like to know that what other people think of you doesn't matter. And that if you can just be free in that regard, it changes everything. How do you think you'll teach your kids that?
I think this is something, I mean, gosh, I wish I had the magic answer. My oldest is 11. You kind of know with your own kids, like, man, that's the thing that you're going to get. Like with all of my children, except, the baby, she's too young yet. But with all of my boys, I'm like, well, that's the thing that people are going to tease you about. And so just keep speaking into like when they are being their wonderfully weird, unique selves, we celebrate the crap out of that. We love you just as you are. We love that Sawyer wants to have a mohawk. We love that, you want to wear that shirt. We love you, we care about your heart, buddy. Every single day when my kids are leaving for school or when I drop them off, I say, be kind to everybody and friends with anybody. We care about your heart. We don't care about the way you look. We don't care about how you dress. We care about who you are as a person and how you show up for other people. That's what matters in our family. So those are the values that I hope that we instill. And I know that this is going to get worse because my oldest is going into middle school, and every middle school parent I know is just like, gird your loins. It's about to get bad. But I think all we keep doing is celebrating who they are and encouraging them to celebrate that in other people. Like, if we're driving in the car and we'll see someone who's like definitely different, we'll be like, oh my gosh, how rad is her hair? Or how, like, we're teaching them, I hope, to look for the differences in people as something great and not something that should be seen as wrong.
Such a good mom. I love that you're celebrating their little uniqueness and affirming them just as they are. What a beautiful gift that you're giving your kids. Very last question. What are you doing right now in your life to cultivate more fun?
I'm moving to Texas. I am moving my entire family and my company from Los Angeles to Austin, Texas. And that is a very purposeful and calculated choice in my life to get out of a city that is not serving us in that way anymore. So I would like on the business side of things, it's an incredible opportunity for, like, Texas is just much kinder to business owners than California is. Mm-hmm. But my husband and I both born and raised in Southern California. And we have lived in LA our entire marriage. I've lived here for 18 years. He's worked in the entertainment industry. And we just started to feel like, man, this is not really what we want for our family anymore. We don't want to sit in traffic. We don't want to have our neighbor's house right on top of ours. We don't want to not know our neighbors' names. We don't want this. So we're moving in 17 days. Oh, I mean, this is imminent. Oh, girl, it's just a hot minute away. But we're moving like very intentionally to, man, we're going to sit out on that back patio and, have Shiner and look out at the land that we bought and just have a slower pace of life. Our work is so crazy and busy that I wanted a space to come back to for rest. And so, I mean, we did something drastic. We chose something big because the quality of life that we are living is the most important thing that we can choose for our family. And I take really seriously that I have a career and a platform that speaks to women all over the world in books and podcasts and on social media. And I am constantly talking about reaching for a better version of yourself and being true to who you are and getting rest and taking care of yourself. And I practice what I preach. And when it started to feel like, man, I don't know that this is the right place for us, took us about a year, but we made a big change and we're about to become Texans.
I so appreciate that you are the real deal. And it really takes us back to the beginning of our conversation where we talked about if you don't like something that's going on in your life, you have the power to change it. Mm-hmm. And so it's so refreshing to see that you are living that in real time and going for it and revolutionizing your life so that it works in just the ways that your family most needs. Thanks so much for listening. After listening to Rachel, I know you're going to want to go and check her out on Instagram, so make sure to do that right now. And also, I just posted a hilarious video on my Instagram of my daughter Charlotte. We are surprise grandparents to baby bunnies, and you do not want to miss checking out this video that I posted because it is the most adorable thing you have seen today. So go and check that out, Mandy Arioto on Instagram. Now go out and have more fun, and don't come back until you do.